Evil sister bullied me for being single while she was secretly dating 2 men. She made everyone think I was worthless, so I exposed her cheating at our parents' anniversary party. Hey everyone. I never thought I'd be posting something this personal online, but I'm at my breaking point and desperately need someone to talk to. I've been bottling everything up for so long, and it's getting harder to deal with by myself. I'm Addison, 21, and completely new here. I know how the internet can be sometimes, so I'm really hoping you all can be understanding. This isn't easy for me to share, but it's about my older sister Fiona, who's 24, and honestly, she's been making my life hell. Let me tell you about what happened 3 days ago. We were at this homecoming party for a mutual friend, you know, one of those gatherings where everyone from high school shows up and pretends to care about each other. I didn't even want to go, but my parents basically forced me. They've got this idea in their heads that I'm becoming some kind of hermit just because I prefer staying in my room rather than dealing with my sister's BS. They thought it would be good for me to socialize without my perfect sister shadowing me for once. Yeah, sure, it was nice that our friend was back after years abroad, but that wasn't the point. The real reason I wanted to skip it was Fiona. I avoid any social situation with her like the plague, and trust me, I have my reasons. I know what you're probably thinking, here's another whiny younger sister who's just jealous of her successful sibling. But let me paint you a picture of what it's been like growing up with Fiona. We're about as different as 2 sisters can be, and not in that cute, complimentary way people talk about. This is more like oil and water, except the oil thinks it's liquid gold. From day one, my parents put her on this pedestal that I couldn't even dream of reaching. While I managed decent grades, she was this academic superstar who never scored below an A+. Everyone kept going on about what an angel she was, how polite and perfect she was to everyone else. But behind closed doors? That's where you'd see the real Fiona. The funny thing is, she's always treated me like dirt, but somehow I'm the only one who sees through her act. The way people fawn over her makes me sick, especially because I know what she's really like. Maybe I'm the only one who's not blind to her perfect little act, or maybe everyone else is just too scared to admit what she's really like. I've spent years trying to figure out why people worship the ground she walks on. Is everyone really that easily fooled? Or am I the crazy one for seeing through her fake personality? Sometimes I lie awake at night wondering if I'm the problem, but then I remember all the cruel things she's done, all the times she's torn me down while wearing that perfect smile of hers, and I know I'm not imagining things. She's not the angel everyone thinks she is, she's just better at hiding her horns than most. Look, I already know what you're thinking, that I'm just another jealous younger sister who can't handle her sibling's success. Trust me, I've heard it all before. But how would you feel if every single day of your life, someone made you feel like you were worthless? Like you were just taking up space in the world? That's what Fiona does to me. She doesn't just outshine me, she makes sure I know how dim my light is in comparison. Her ego isn't just big, it's suffocating. Everyone sees her confidence, but they miss the cruelty behind it. She doesn't just succeed, she needs to push others down to feel taller. And let's talk about her looks because everyone else does. Fiona's the pretty one, I've heard that phrase so many times I could scream. Guys have been falling all over themselves to date her since high school, and she treats them all like they're not good enough. She's had more boyfriends than I can count, but according to her, none of them met her standards. She acts like she's doing them a favor by even considering them. Must be nice to have so many options that you can treat people like they're items at a store you can just put back on the shelf. The way she judges people makes me sick. She's like this walking, talking mean girl's character, but instead of getting called out for it, people praise her honesty. She'll tear apart someone's outfit right in front of them but phrase it like helpful advice. She makes comments about people's relationships like she's some relationship guru. The other day, she told our cousin her boyfriend was brave for dating someone with her body type. Who says that? But everyone just laughs it off because it's Fiona, and Fiona can do no wrong. Sometimes I fantasize about just screaming in her face to shut up, but we all know who'd end up looking like the bad guy in that situation. But the worst part? Our parents. They don't hate me, no, that would be easier to deal with. Instead, they're constantly trying to mold me into a second-rate copy of Fiona. Why can't you be more like your sister? Look how Fiona handles these situations. You should learn from your sister. It's like they had their perfect child and then got stuck with a defective version. They make me tag along with her everywhere, like I'm some kind of project she needs to fix. They genuinely believe that if I spend enough time with her, her perfection will somehow rub off on me. As if being forced to watch someone being praised for breathing while you're criticized for existing isn't bad enough, they think the solution is more exposure to it. They call it personality development, but really, they're just hoping their disappointing daughter might learn something from their golden child. The worst part is, they don't even realize how much damage they're doing. They think they're helping me, which somehow makes it even worse. Growing up, every single aspect of my life was held up against Fiona's like some twisted measuring stick. It wasn't just big things, they picked apart everything. The way I dressed? Fiona would never wear that. My B+ in math? Fiona got an A without even trying. My interest in art? Why can't you do something practical like Fiona? It wasn't just our parents either. Random relatives, family, friends, neighbors, everyone felt entitled to compare us. The absolute worst was when people would come up to me, looking all concerned, and ask, why can't you be more like your sister? As if I was some failed science experiment. But it didn't stop there. Even my teachers got in on it. I still remember my high school math teacher announcing to the whole class that she expected better from Fiona's sister. I was just Fiona's sister to them, never Addison, never my own person. Just the disappointing sequel to their star student. All this comparison messed me up more than I'd like to admit. My confidence? Destroyed. Social life? Non-existent. I gradually stopped hanging out with people because I couldn't handle the constant reminders of how I didn't measure up. And relationships? That's a whole other level of mess. I'm 21, and I've never had a boyfriend. Never even been kissed. And before you start thinking I'm just being picky or playing hard to get, it's not that simple. Years of being told you're not good enough kind of kills any desire to put yourself out there. How are you supposed to connect with someone when you've been trained to see yourself as the inferior version of someone else? Every time a guy shows even slight interest, all I can think is they'll probably like Fiona better once they meet her. It's pathetic, I know, but that's what happens when your entire identity has been reduced to being someone's less impressive sister. So back to this gathering I mentioned earlier. Everyone's there, catching up, having a good time. Fiona, of course, immediately gets surrounded by her fan club, while I end up doing what I do best, blending into the wallpaper in some corner. After a few hours, we all sat in this big circle to welcome our friend back, and that's when it really hit me how much of an outsider I was. Looking around that circle was like watching some teenage rom-com where everyone's paired up. Some were in serious relationships, others were talking, whatever that means these days, and then there was me, the only person who couldn't even manage to start a conversation with someone without feeling like I was bothering them. And right in the middle of it all? Fiona and her boyfriend Jeffrey, looking like they just stepped out of a magazine cover. He's this tall, smart, good-looking guy who everyone loves, and they're that perfect couple that makes you want to roll your eyes but you can't because they actually look good together. And Fiona? She loves it. She absolutely loves that people envy their relationship because it gives her one more thing to hold over my head. One more way to remind everyone, especially me, that she's winning at life while I can't even get past the starting line. The moment I'd been dreading finally came when one of Fiona's friends turned to me with that fake sympathetic look people get when they're about to ask something they already know will hurt you. So Addison, are you seeing anyone? Or interested in someone maybe? Before I could even open my mouth to respond, Fiona burst out laughing. Not just a normal laugh, this was the kind of laugh that makes everyone stop and stare. The kind that's meant to hurt. Relationships? My sister? She could barely get the words out between her laughs. You might as well ask if a rock's dating someone. The only relationship she has is with her bedroom ceiling, crying herself to sleep every night. The worst part wasn't even her words, it was how everyone else joined in, like my loneliness was the funniest joke they'd heard all year. But Fiona wasn't done. No, she was just getting started. Let's be real here, she continued, clearly enjoying her audience. Have you looked at her? What guy would want to date someone who looks like that? She gestured at me like I was some kind of science experiment gone wrong. Any man who ended up with her would basically be admitting defeat in life. More laughter. Every single person in that circle was laughing. Some were trying to hide it behind their hands, others were openly pointing, but they were all laughing. At me. And Fiona just sat there, soaking it all in like some queen on her throne. I felt the tears coming, but that just made everything worse. "Aw, look, she's crying again," Fiona announced to everyone. "Maybe instead of crying about being single, you should try improving yourself? Hit the gym, learn to dress better, maybe get a personality?" She counted off each suggestion on her fingers like she was giving valuable life advice instead of publicly destroying me. I mean, someone might actually look at you then. Maybe. If they're really desperate. Just when I thought it couldn't get worse, Fiona grabbed Jeffrey and pulled him into this dramatic kiss, right there in front of everyone. It was like something out of a movie, except I was the pathetic side character meant to make the main couple look better. "See this?" she said after finally breaking away from the kiss. "This is what a real relationship looks like. This is what you could have if you weren't such a mess. You should be taking notes, little sister. I mean, look at me, I managed to get the perfect man. And you? You can't even get a guy to look at you twice. Everyone was nodding along, completely under her spell. Some of the girls were looking at her with pure admiration, like she was giving some kind of inspirational speech instead of tearing down her own sister. Honestly, you need to grow up, she finished, looking at me like I was some disappointment she had to deal with. At this rate, you're going to end up alone forever. But hey, maybe that's for the best. Not everyone's cut out for love, right? I just sat there, tears running down my face, unable to say a word. The worst part? I believed her. After years of hearing this kind of thing, not just from her but from our parents too, how could I not? They're always telling me the same things, that I need to be more like Fiona, that I need to try harder, that I need to change everything about myself. So I just sat there, accepting what everyone clearly already knew, that I was nothing but a loser, the failed copy of perfect Fiona. In that moment, surrounded by their laughter and judgment, I had never felt more alone. When we got home that night, I tried one last time to get my parents to understand. I went to their room, still shaking from everything that happened, hoping that maybe this time would be different. Maybe this time they'd actually listen to me, see how much their perfect daughter was hurting me. I told them everything, how Fiona had humiliated me in front of everyone, how she'd called me unworthy of love, how everyone had laughed at me. You know what they did? They didn't even look up from their phones. My mom just sighed, like I was bothering her with something trivial, and said, "Fiona's your older sister, she knows what's best for you." My dad nodded along and added, "She's just trying to help you improve yourself." That's when it really hit me, they agreed with her. My own parents actually believed I was unworthy of love. They thought I deserved to be humiliated like that. I spent that entire night locked in my room, crying until I couldn't breathe. My pillow was soaked, but I couldn't stop. I kept replaying everything in my head, the laughter, the pointing, Fiona's smug face, my parents' dismissal. What did I do to deserve this? Was I really that horrible of a person? I couldn't sleep, couldn't eat, couldn't think about anything else. So I did what any desperate person would do, I downloaded every dating app I could find. Tinder, Bumble, Hinge, all of them. I spent hours creating profiles, trying to make myself look perfect, thinking maybe if I could just find someone, anyone, it would prove to Fiona and everyone else that I wasn't completely worthless. But guess what? Total failure. Every single match either ghosted me or turned out to be some creep. It was like the universe was confirming everything Fiona had said about me. I even started following her stupid advice. I signed up for a gym membership, spent hours watching makeup tutorials, bought new clothes I couldn't really afford. Every morning I'd wake up early to work out, desperately trying to transform myself into someone worthy of love. Someone more like Fiona. I started counting calories, watching every bite I ate, scrutinizing myself in the mirror for hours. All because my sister had convinced everyone, including me, that I wasn't good enough as I was. But nothing was ever enough for Fiona. She watched me trying to improve myself with this smirk on her face, like she was enjoying watching me struggle. One day, while I was getting ready to go to the gym, she leaned against my doorway and said, "You know this is pointless, right? You could spend years trying to be like me, but let's be real, you'll always be the ugly duckling who never turns into a swan. Nobody's going to waste their time on you." I wanted to scream. I wanted to throw something at her perfect face. Instead, I just went back to my room and punched my pillow until my knuckles hurt. That's what brought me here, to this community. I'm completely lost. Every time I try to stand up for myself, I get knocked back down. Every time I try to improve myself, I'm told it's pointless. My sister hates me, my parents don't support me, and I'm starting to believe everyone who says I'm unworthy of love. So please, I need to know, what am I supposed to do? Should I just accept that Fiona will always be the better one? Should I give up on ever finding someone who might actually care about me? Is this really all I deserve from life? Being the pathetic shadow of my perfect sister? Update 1. Hey everyone. First, I want to thank you all for the incredible support on my last post. Reading your comments made me feel less alone for the first time in forever. Before I get into what happened, I need to address something. Some people in the comments called me an attention seeker. Really? You think after 21 years of being emotionally abused and staying quiet, this is about attention? Let me be clear, if I wanted attention, I wouldn't have spent my entire life swallowing my pride while Fiona walked all over me. I wouldn't have stayed silent every time she humiliated me. I would have fought back. Trust me, there were plenty of times I wanted to punch that smug smile off her face, but I didn't. So don't you dare call me an attention seeker when you have no idea what it's like living with someone like her. Now for the real update, and trust me, it's big. It's been a month since my last post, and I discovered something that's going to make all those Fiona worshippers choke on their words. Little Miss Perfect isn't so perfect after all. Remember how I mentioned her boyfriend Jeffrey? The dream guy she loves rubbing in my face? Well, for the past few weeks, Fiona's been getting these elaborate flower deliveries and expensive gifts. She's been parading them around the house, making sure everyone sees them, claiming they're all from Jeffrey. My parents ate it up, of course. They love Jeffrey, he's exactly the kind of successful, handsome guy they think their precious daughter deserves. They never questioned it because why would they? Fiona would never lie, right? Jeffrey used to come over all the time, but lately, his visits have gotten less and less frequent. People started noticing, but no one really said anything. Fiona had some excuse ready every time. He's busy with work, he's visiting family, whatever. I didn't think much of it either, until yesterday. I was walking past Fiona's room, the door was cracked open, and I saw something that made me stop dead in my tracks. There was Fiona, all cuddled up with some guy who definitely wasn't Jeffrey. They were sitting on her bed, and she was giggling that fake little laugh she does when she's flirting. When she saw me standing there, the look on her face was priceless. For once in her life, Miss Perfect looked terrified. The guy looked confused, and Fiona practically shoved him away from her. I asked her what the hell was going on, and that's when she spun this story about how she and Jeffrey had broken up ages ago. Funny how nobody knew about this, and this was Samuel, her new boyfriend. According to her, she was just trying to heal her broken heart. Right. Because nothing helps heal a broken heart like secretly dating someone else while pretending to still be with your ex. Let me tell you something about this whole heartbreak situation, it's complete BS. I've seen Fiona actually upset before, and this isn't it. She's walking around the house humming to herself, spending hours getting ready before Samuel comes over, and practically glowing every time she gets another delivery. Those fancy gifts I mentioned? Turns out they're all from Samuel. He's apparently loaded and trying to win her over with expensive presents. Must be nice having multiple guys fighting for your attention while telling your sister she'll die alone. I actually felt sorry for Jeffrey at first. I mean, getting dumped by someone like Fiona must be rough, right? But then I started thinking about how weird this whole situation was. Why hadn't anyone heard about their breakup? Why was she keeping Samuel such a big secret? That's when Fiona cornered me in my room one night. She put on that fake sweet voice she uses when she wants something, asking me to keep quiet about Samuel. I just need time to figure out if he's the one, she said, like she was the star of some romance movie. I'll tell everyone when I'm ready. But here's the thing, it wasn't really a request. Every time she went out with Samuel, she'd text me these little reminders about keeping my mouth shut. They weren't friendly messages either. They were straight up threats, always ending with something like remember what happened last time you crossed me, or it would be shame if mom and dad found out about, insert something she could use against me. Classic Fiona, always finding new ways to control me. And what choice did I have? She spent years making sure everyone sees me as the pathetic, jealous little sister. If I tried to expose her secret, she'd find a way to make me look like the bad guy. Again. So I kept quiet, like I always do. Then something happened that made everything even weirder. I was in Fiona's room borrowing a charger. She makes such a big deal whenever I need to borrow anything, and her phone was just lying there on the bed. She was in the bathroom, probably doing her hourly makeup check or whatever. Suddenly her phone starts lighting up with notifications. A lot of them. And guess whose name I saw? Jeffrey. Not just one message either, multiple notifications, all from her supposedly ex-boyfriend. I know I shouldn't have looked at her phone, but after years of her going through my stuff and using everything against me, I figured I owed her one. Unfortunately, her phone was locked, so I couldn't read the messages, but it definitely got me thinking. Why would her ex be blowing up her phone like that? If they really broke up, wouldn't he have moved on by now? Something isn't adding up here. Maybe he's trying to get her back? Maybe they're still friends? But this is Fiona we're talking about, she doesn't stay friends with exes. She usually spends months trashing them to anyone who'll listen after a breakup. But she hasn't said a single bad word about Jeffrey. Not one. In fact, she barely mentions him at all anymore, which is weird considering how much she used to brag about him. I can't prove anything yet, but my gut is telling me there's more to this story. A lot more. I need to get this off my chest because something about this whole situation isn't sitting right with me. Those of you who commented on my last post know what kind of person Fiona is, but let me paint you an even clearer picture of how she usually handles breakups. This is a girl who once spent 3 months telling everyone who would listen about how her high school boyfriend was emotionally stunted because he forgot her half birthday. She turned a guy asking for space into a 6-week drama festival where she was the tragic heroine. One time, a guy broke up with her because he was moving across the country for work, and she somehow twisted it into him abandoning her because he couldn't handle a strong woman. That's just who Fiona is. She doesn't just end relationships, she turns them into public spectacles where she's always the victim. She'll post cryptic quotes about betrayal on social media for weeks. She'll accidentally run into his friends so she can tell her side of the story first. She'll show up at family dinners with puffy eyes and pick at her food until someone asks what's wrong, then spend 2 hours detailing every single thing the guy did wrong. Our mom usually has to take a week off work just to console her after breakups. But with Jeffrey? Complete radio silence. No tearful phone calls to her friends. No passive-aggressive social media posts. No dramatic speeches at the dinner table about how men can't handle successful women. Nothing. Zero. Zilch. This is the same girl who threw a 3-day pity party because a guy she went on 2 dates with didn't text her back fast enough. But we're supposed to believe she quietly broke up with her perfect boyfriend, the guy she's been shoving in everyone's face for months, and just moved on? Without making sure everyone knew how wrong she was? And let's talk about how she's handling this thing with Samuel. Fiona doesn't do subtle. She's never kept a relationship secret in her life, she usually wants everyone to know she's desirable and has options. But suddenly she's Miss Discreet? Sneaking around? Making threats to keep people quiet? This is the same person who once announced at our grandmother's birthday party that she'd gone on a coffee date with the local weatherman. A coffee date. Not even a real date. Just coffee. I know everyone's going to say I'm obsessing over this, that I'm trying to find problems where there aren't any. Maybe you're right. Maybe I am overthinking this whole thing. But I've spent my entire life watching Fiona manipulate situations and people to get what she wants. I know her playbook by heart. And this? This isn't it. This isn't normal Fiona behavior. Something bigger is going on here, and I can feel it in my gut. So what do you guys think? Am I reading too much into this? Or does something seem off to you too? Because right now, I feel like I'm sitting on a ticking time bomb, just waiting for everything to blow up in everyone's faces. Update 2. Hey everyone. I honestly thought I wouldn't be posting again so soon, but holy shit, you won't believe what I just discovered. Before I get into the bomb I'm about to drop, I want to thank you all for the amazing support on my last post. Your comments and messages have meant the world to me. First, a quick personal update that some of you have been asking about. I actually started seeing someone recently. The unworthy sister finally found someone who sees her value. He's nothing like the guys Fiona dates, no flashy car or expensive gifts. Instead, he actually listens when I talk, remembers the little things I mention, and treats me with real respect, not the fake kind Fiona's boyfriends show when others are watching. It's early days, but for the first time in my life, I don't feel like someone's settling for me. It's nice to finally understand what actual connection feels like, not the superficial stuff Fiona's always bragging about. But that's not why I'm here today. What I'm about to tell you makes everything else look like child's play. Last week, I was at the market downtown, just picking up some groceries. I was heading to the parking lot when I passed by this little cafe, you know, one of those cozy places with big windows where you can see everyone inside. And guess who I saw? Fiona. She wasn't alone. She was with Jeffrey. Yes, that Jeffrey. The same Jeffrey who supposedly broke up with her ages ago. The same Jeffrey she was heartbroken over. They weren't just having coffee either, they were holding hands across the table, looking very much like a couple who never broke up at all. I literally stopped in the middle of the sidewalk and stared. People were probably wondering what was wrong with me, but I couldn't move. Remember how in my last post I said something felt off about this whole situation? Well, this confirmed every single suspicion I had. They definitely didn't look like two people who had broken up. In fact, they looked more couple-y than ever. He was doing that thing where he plays with her rings while they talk, the same thing I've seen him do 100 times before when they were officially together. At first, I tried to rationalize it. Maybe they were getting back together? Maybe this was some kind of reconciliation meeting? But something in my gut told me this wasn't a reunion. They looked too comfortable, too familiar. This wasn't two people finding their way back to each other, this was two people who had never been apart. But wait, it gets worse. That same night, guess who I saw sneaking into Fiona's bedroom? Samuel. The same Samuel she claimed was helping her get over Jeffrey. I stood there in the hallway trying to make sense of what I was seeing. Either this was the world's messiest reconciliation, or my perfect sister was playing both guys at once. I couldn't just ignore this anymore, so I did something I never thought I'd do. I started keeping tabs on Fiona. For the next few days, I watched her like a hawk. I noted when she left the house, who she was with, when she came back. I even downloaded one of those shared location apps and convinced her to join it for safety. What I discovered made me sick to my stomach. Every single day, she was meeting Jeffrey. Coffee dates, lunch meetings, shopping trips, they were together constantly, acting exactly like they always had. No sign of any breakup there. But then, like clockwork, Samuel would show up in the evenings. He'd slip into her room when our parents were asleep, thinking no one knew. She was living a double life, and doing it so smoothly that I almost had to admire her skill. But here's where things get really interesting. In the middle of all this drama, I noticed something else weird happening. Maria, Fiona's ride-or-die best friend since middle school, had suddenly vanished from the picture. Now, you have to understand, Maria and Fiona were inseparable. They had one of those friendships where they finished each other's sentences and had a million inside jokes. They posted about each other constantly, had weekly wine nights, the whole best friends forever deal. But suddenly? Radio silence. No more matching Instagram posts, no more tagging each other in memes, no more Saturday brunches. They even unfollowed each other on every social platform. In Fiona's world, that's basically a declaration of war. I've always had a decent relationship with Maria. Unlike most of Fiona's friends who treat me like I'm invisible, Maria actually talks to me like I'm a real person. She's always been kind, always listened when I needed someone to talk to. So after watching this weird silence between them for a week, I decided to go straight to the source. I showed up at Maria's house, which was probably pretty bold of me. When she opened the door, she looked shocked to see me standing there. The first words out of her mouth weren't hello or how are you, they were did Fiona send you? There was something in her voice when she said my sister's name. Not anger exactly, but something close to it. When I told her no, she actually looked relieved, which told me everything I needed to know. Whatever was going on between them was serious. Maria didn't even let me finish my question about what was wrong. She just started laughing, not a happy laugh, but the kind that comes when something's so messed up it's almost funny. Your sister? She said, shaking her head. Your sister is pure evil. She deserves everything that's coming to her. Coming from someone who's defended Fiona for years, this was huge. That's when Maria spilled everything. Turns out my perfect sister has been running the longest con I've ever heard of. Remember how I said the timing of her relationship with Samuel seemed weird? Well, according to Maria, there was never a breakup with Jeffrey. Not even close. Fiona's been playing both guys from the start. She's been dating Jeffrey publicly, keeping her perfect couple image intact, while secretly seeing Samuel on the side. Maria told me she'd known about it for weeks but kept quiet to protect their friendship. Classic Maria, always trying to see the best in people, even Fiona. But then Fiona did something that crossed every line. She actually bragged to Maria about it. Sat there over coffee and proudly explained how she was living her best life by dating both guys. When Maria tried to be the voice of reason, pointing out how wrong it was and how badly both guys would be hurt when they found out, Fiona just laughed it off. This is totally normal, she said, like she was explaining something obvious to a child. Everyone does it, they just don't admit it. When Maria stood her ground and refused to support this mess, Fiona turned on her. Called her a poisonous snake for not backing her up. Accused her of being jealous. Told her real friends would support her no matter what. 20 years of friendship, thrown away because Maria dared to suggest that cheating on two guys wasn't okay. My perfect sister, the one who spent years making me feel worthless for never having a relationship, was literally juggling two boyfriends like some kind of twisted circus act. The irony is almost too perfect. All those times she humiliated me about being unworthy of love, and here she is, proving she doesn't even know what real love looks like. All those lectures about how I need to be more like her? Yeah, I think I'll pass on being a cheater, thanks. So now I'm sitting on this nuclear bomb of information, and I don't know what to do with it. What do you guys think I should do? Is it finally time for Little Miss Perfect to face the consequences of her actions? Update 3. Hey everyone. It's been about 2 months since my last update, and honestly, I never thought I'd be back here. But after reading all your comments and support, I knew I owed you the finale to this story. And trust me, it's one hell of an ending. First, I want to thank everyone who's been following this saga since the beginning. Your support and advice helped me more than you'll ever know. To everyone who told me to stand up for myself, who said I deserved better than being Fiona's emotional punching bag, this one's for you. So, remember how I ended my last post asking what I should do about Fiona's little two-timing situation? Well, After years of being the quiet sister, the one who always took the high road while Fiona walked all over me, I finally decided enough was enough. Perfect Fiona, who spent years making me feel worthless for being single, was juggling 2 boyfriends like some twisted rom-com character. The sister who loved to preach about my lack of relationship experience was running the biggest relationship scam I'd ever seen. And for once in my life, I had the power to do something about it. Here's what went down. Our parents' 36th wedding anniversary was coming up, and everyone was planning this big celebration. We're talking fancy venue, catered food. Fiona was in charge of the guest list because of course she was, anything to maintain control. I noticed she'd only invited Jeffrey, her official boyfriend, leaving Samuel in the dark like usual. That's when it hit me, this was my chance. The perfect opportunity to show everyone exactly who Fiona really was. I spent weeks planning it. Every detail had to be perfect because I knew I'd only get one shot at this. Fiona had spent years carefully building her image as the perfect daughter, the perfect sister, the perfect girlfriend. She'd convinced everyone that I was the mess, the one who couldn't get her life together. Well, it was time to show everyone what perfect really looked like. The hardest part was getting both guys to show up without Fiona finding out. I couldn't just send them invitations, that would be too obvious. No, this had to be handled delicately. This had to come from Fiona herself. Maria was absolutely crucial in pulling this off. She still had both guys' contact information from all those group events Fiona used to organize. We crafted these perfect invitations, making sure they looked exactly like the ones Fiona had sent out. We even copied her writing style, all those stupid heart emojis she uses and her signature "can't wait to see you." At the end, Maria sent Jeffrey's invitation, and I handled Samuel's. Neither of them suspected a thing. Why would they? As far as they knew, they were each Fiona's one and only. I stationed myself near the entrance, watching every person who walked in. My hands were shaking so bad I could barely hold my phone, waiting for Maria's text confirming both guys were on their way. Then it happened. I swear, someone up there must have been on my side because they literally walked in within minutes of each other. Jeffrey came in first, looking all polished in his designer suit, exactly the kind of guy Fiona loves to show off. Then Samuel walked in, and I watched him scan the room, probably looking for Fiona. This was my moment. I walked up to them, playing the perfect hostess, and said, "Oh, you must be looking for Fiona. Let me introduce you to each other since you're both so special to my sister." The next few minutes played out better than anything I could have scripted. They did that typical guy thing, shaking hands, making small talk. Jeffrey asked Samuel how he knew the family, probably just being polite. That's when Samuel said, "Oh, I'm Fiona's boyfriend. We recently started dating." I wish I had a camera ready for Jeffrey's face. You know that moment in movies where someone's whole world shifts? That's what it looked like. His smile froze, then slowly disappeared as his brain tried to process what he'd just heard. "I'm sorry, what did you just say?" Jeffrey's voice was so quiet, like he was hoping he'd heard wrong. But Samuel just doubled down. He pulled out his phone and showed Jeffrey a picture of him and Fiona together. It was pretty intimate too, no mistaking it for just friends. Jeffrey stared at that photo like he was trying to find some way to make it not real. "This has to be some kind of joke," he said, but I could hear in his voice that he was starting to realize it wasn't. That's when Jeffrey lost it. He yanked out his phone and pulled up his own set of photos, intimate pictures of him and Fiona from just days ago. Now it was Samuel's turn to look like he'd been hit by a truck. The two guys just stood there, holding up their phones like evidence in a trial, both realizing they'd been played for fools. While this was happening, I was looking around the room for Fiona. I finally spotted her near the dessert table, and I swear, I've never seen her look so terrified. My perfect sister, who always had an answer for everything, was standing there like she'd seen a ghost. Her face had gone completely white, and for once in her life, she wasn't moving. The great Fiona, frozen in place, watching her carefully constructed world of lies collapse in real time. When she finally managed to move, she walked toward us like she was heading to her own execution. I'd seen Fiona fake her way out of countless situations before, but this time was different. Her face was a mask of pure guilt as she tried to stammer out some explanation. But before she could even get a full sentence out, Jeffrey threw his invitation right in her face. "You lying, cheating piece of slut," he shouted. The music stopped. The conversations died. Every single person at our parents' anniversary party turned to watch the show. Our parents came rushing over, probably hoping to prevent a scene at their perfect party. Mom was already starting her "now, let's all calm down" routine, but it was way too late for that. Years of Fiona's manipulation and lies were coming undone in front of everyone who had ever believed in her perfect act. And what did Fiona do? What did my strong, confident, better than everyone's sister do when finally confronted with her own actions? She burst into tears. Not quiet, dignified tears, full-on ugly crying, mascara running down her face. She tried to play the victim, of course. That's her go-to move, but this time, nobody was buying it. For the first time in her life, she couldn't talk her way out of what she'd done. The whole room erupted in laughter, the same kind of cruel laughter she'd directed at me so many times before. All these people who had spent years buying into her perfect image were suddenly seeing the real Fiona, and they were loving the show. Jeffrey and Samuel weren't done either. They took turns laying out every lie she'd told them, every time she'd played them against each other without them knowing. They called her every name in the book, but my favorite was when they called her a woman of who opens her legs for attention, the exact phrase she'd used to describe other girls she looked down on. Both guys dumped her right there, in front of everyone. No private conversation, no chance to manipulate the narrative later. Just public, humiliating rejection from both of her boyfriends at once. The aftermath was almost better than the main event. Mom and Dad finally had to face who their perfect daughter really was. When they confronted her, Fiona came up with the lamest excuse I've ever heard. She was confused about which guy to pick. That's right, miss, I'm so much better than everyone claims. She couldn't make up her mind between two men. The same sister who spent years telling me I wasn't worthy of even one relationship was juggling two guys because she was confused. The irony was completely lost on her. The party turned into a total disaster, but like, the best kind of disaster. People were huddled in corners, whispering and pointing. All these years of my parents parading Fiona around like some kind of trophy child had backfired spectacularly. The humiliation must have been too much for her to handle because 3 days after the party, Fiona just disappeared. Packed her bags and left town without telling anyone where she was going. No goodbye, no explanation, just gone. Mom and Dad are pretty torn up about it, of course. They're sad their golden child turned out to be fool's gold, but I think they're finally starting to understand how toxic their favoritism was. They haven't compared me to her once since she left, which is a nice change. I couldn't have done any of this without you guys. Your support, your advice, your encouragement, it gave me the strength to finally stand up for myself. Special shout out to Maria, who turned out to be a real friend when I needed one most. We've actually gotten really close since all this went down. It's nice having someone who sees the real me, not just Fiona's sister. As for me? Remember that guy I mentioned I was seeing? Things are going really well. It's so different being in a relationship where I'm valued for who I am, not constantly compared to someone else. He knows the whole story and has never once made me feel like I'm not enough. So this is me, signing off. Fiona's gone, and honestly, good riddance. Maybe some time away from her pedestal will teach her how to be a decent human being. Take care of yourselves, everyone. And remember, karma might take her time, but she always delivers in the end.